Words from a female police officer. Trying to be a female in a world run predominantly by men is sometimes very difficult. We live in a world that is constantly trying to achieve gender equality. No longer are females limited to clerical positions. Society is beginning to notice that women are now able to go out and do jobs that are similar to males. These are the stories of 3 women in Huntsville Police Department who continue to set examples for other women, proving that gender does not have to matter as a police officer. The duties carried out by a police officer are not easy, and these women share what their typical day consists of.
No day is the same. No call is the same. Anytime they're going to say our name on the radio, you have no idea what you're going to. I've been called over to an 80-year-old lady's house because she couldn't figure out how to work her heater, to an unattended death and having to do a death notification, or helping the firemen pull torn up bodies from a car. You never know.
Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays are going out looking for individuals with warrants or serving court paperwork. Addresses changed, phone numbers changed, places of employment changed, so I have to do all the investigation skills to figure out where they live or what their current phone number is or where their job is now. Wednesdays and Thursdays is court all day, every day.
I go to HISD Transportation, which is what we call the bus barn. And it is where 60 buses have picked up children all over the county. So I go out there just for safety and be sure that nothing goes wrong. And then when I leave there, I come to my school, which this is my office for where I office at. But I actually have 3 schools.
So patrol is like the traffic stops and coming up to assault cases and disturbances, anything that's generated through dispatch or self-initiated. And the city marshal is basically warrant service, summons, bailiff for court. So a lot of people ask me, what is the city marshal? And to make them understand it, I'm kind of like a constable.
There was an opening for a school resource officer, which is a lot less stress. I wanted to be able to help the children. I deal with custody issues, parents who are fighting over custody of their children. There's a lot of mentoring, and that's what I spend most of my time doing. I have kids that I just talk to, just counsel or educate them, and talk a lot about what police officers are, what we do.
Our shifts are from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it's a very long day. This is definitely not your Monday through Friday 8 to 5 job.
All of these women come from different backgrounds, and they all have different family encounters. But it is through each encounter that makes these women the notable police officers that they are.
My dad was really, he was a commander, he was a colonel in the Army. As it evolved in his 30-year career span, he got to see women and know their determination, and he saw me growing up and knowing my determination in my fight, and so I think he knew that I was capable of doing the job. They do get more concerned because in the Army, yes, you put yourself in harm's way, but it's typically when you go away to war. And here, you never know when, I guess, a war-like situation is going to happen. You just don't know.
My husband's law enforcement as well. We understand the lifestyle. So it's awesome. I don't care what chair I sit at because I know he's going to be sitting opposite. We have each other's backs.
It is difficult for him at times to see me as a police officer because he knows what I go through. As crazy as it is, because he's supposed to be the protector, I try to protect him.
My first fiance was not military, did not understand it at all. He was mad when I wasn't at home on time, but I'm sitting here going, I saved someone's life today. You know, I found someone that had already written their suicide note and I got them help.
You know, I'll tell him a story and he sees how badly it hurts me, like coming up on patrol, coming up to accidents and just seeing scenes and things that, you know, normal people don't want to see. You put yourself in that situation to see it, and so it eats me up, and therefore since it eats me up, it eats him up.
My husband now, he's a great resource. So not only, you know, at home, if I'm able to like debrief, that's when our sense of emotion is, and that's when we're able to calm down and it hits us. he understands where I'm coming from.
Women in the police force are presented with many opposing viewpoints, and each of them work to prove that they are just as valuable as the males.
I don't feel like we're looked at as one of the men. I've had positive experiences with it because an individual that's known to be hostile and aggressive and combative with men is usually not combative with me.
But it's a good and a bad thing. There are some times where it's, you know, you do need that male muscle. You do need that male influence to kind of sit there and back it up, because they are not going to take you seriously because you're not a man.
So on a regular level of just being an officer, that's one thing, but there's so much more to just being a different gender. So, you know, as a female, you know, they want to protect you versus my big, you know, muscular friend, guy friend. But also they're protective too, because if we are single or, you know, if we have kids, you know, there are just things about men and women that we try to work with.
Up into the 1970s, there was only 2% of women in law enforcement. So it was typically for a white male. When women start getting into law enforcement, they want to give us gender-specific roles that they think we can handle because we're women, but they won't give us roles that they'll give a male. Defense tactics instructors, men. Fire range instructors, men. So it's difficult to get into a society that needs to see women can do what men can do.
You can always sit there, you can watch movies, you can hear street talk, you can watch videos and all this other stuff and hear language. But for someone to look you point blank in the face and call you certain names, it's very discouraging. I am the tallest female that's here, you know, a whopping 5'6", right? You're like, what? Yes. But when I'm expected to push around the same guy that a guy that's 6'3" and 200 something pounds is, and everything, you're expected to kind of hold your weight.
Women in law enforcement are faced with many challenges strictly because of their gender differences. These particular women share their challenges they have experienced simply because they are a woman.
I would say that trying to be a mother and be responsible for a family and also trying to be all the things that this job requires it's very challenging. But also, I think just trying to keep up physically with the guys.
I think they want the women to prove themselves before they'll come and say, okay, yeah, she's got this, she can handle herself. I know a lot of times we actually have to get in a fight and show them that we're willing to potentially get hurt for them to know that we have their back and we're capable of having their back. They want you to know that you're not afraid to get hurt, and that was the struggle because it doesn't always feel good to get hurt.
I too have to use certain words and stuff like that to gain power in certain situations. So it's more or less those are ones that stick with you, and when it's like, you know what, I didn't sign up for this, I don't put my life on the line to be called that, and different things. But in that situation, you have to take it with a grain of salt and go, you know what, I do risk my life every day, I do work hard to get where I am, and you go.
I was pregnant on the force. I found out in January that me and my husband were going to expect our first baby. I came in here, I told them I was pregnant. They immediately wanted to put me on desk duty. And I didn't want to be on desk duty. I said, well, let me go to the doctor, talk to her about being law enforcement and pregnant. She still wanted me to exercise. She still wanted me to work. She still wanted me to do everything that I did before I was pregnant. And then when I came in there and I told them, look, I'm clear, she said, there's no issue, let me work. They let me continue to work. I wore the uniform for about 4 months. So even though I was getting bigger, I was still good to work, I just needed a uniform. So I altered a uniform. I went and got BDU pants from Academy and took them to the cleaners and had her put elastic in there. So I worked all the way up till 3rd trimester, pregnant, doing my daily routines, going out looking for people. I would take people to jail and they would be asking questions about the baby. So, I mean, it was pretty cool to see that nobody wanted to challenge that.
The legislature meets every 2 years. We have to take these classes every 2 years. Can you imagine the crime that has to occur in order for the bill to become a law, to even get that in effect and then run it to us and get us trained in it and everything? We're being as proactive as possible, but we literally have to wait for society and all that stuff to finish, and then here comes law enforcement.
Some of their shocking moments within their field happen on a psychological basis and can feel extremely personal.
When I signed on here, I was 21, and part of our paperwork is I had to make my funeral arrangements. So that's a culture shock to some people. You're 21 years old. Do you know who you want to carry your casket? Do you know what flowers you want? Do you want a police funeral, or do you want a private funeral in respect for your family? What kind of music? What kind of flowers? Where do you want to be buried? How do you want to be buried? You want to be cremated? Just 21 years old. You have to write a will, know if there's a will handy, get lawyers involved, all that already. I think I had 2 dogs to my name in my diploma.
I think it's probably just how much a police officer can do inside of a school. I didn't realize how much you can impact children. So I think just relationships that I've developed with some of those kids, and just watching them change and watching them change their attitudes toward police or toward criminal, type behavior. So that was just, the fact that they just love you. They love to hug you and tell you how, you're a hero. It's definitely different from a lot of the other work I've done before.
I see people at their everyday low. And so, some people can handle that and some people can't. So it's just, if we were all meant to be police officers, we all would be. However, we're not.
The Huntsville Police Department female officers are not only living as a cop, but they are becoming more successful in their field by accomplishing many tasks.
I've done a lot with the marshal position. I generated it to all our warrants to make them viewable online. And then I put it on the Facebook page, and that got hits to where people were contacting me saying, this is where that person is. A whole bunch of comments, tags, like people were tagging friends saying, hey, you got a warrant. That was a big accomplishment, putting everything on a public media site, because like I said, numbers change, addresses change, but what does not change is somebody's Facebook.
I have worked some amazing cases as a detective, murder cases, things that I'm very proud of. However, I think that because of where I came from, kind of like my history, and I was a mom. I had 3 kids when I got here. I had twin girls that were very little when I went through the academy. I thought that the fact that I was able to juggle it all, I was able to be a mom and do this job at the same time, and then show my kids what I'm capable of, and then also show myself that, hey, I can do this. I kind of went out and thought, this might be a little bit too much, but then I actually found that I had a lot more in me than I knew.
Here are the encouraging words shared by these officers.
They think that women don't necessarily shoot as well as men. My goal is to prove them wrong. I'm physically fit to run as well as a man, and I'm going to keep up as well as a man. I'm going to try my best on push-ups, and I'm going to try to be equal. I don't think in Huntsville yet we've had a female on the SWAT team, so that's another goal that I know us women are probably going to be reaching for.
If you want to do it, do it. The whole girl power, it definitely takes a special type of woman to do this job. I firmly believe that. But everyone's put here for a reason.
Go for it. Go for it. It's not going to be easy.
I'm always encouraging it. I just know that it's hard. It's a hard road.
If you have a passion for helping people and wanting to make a difference, then definitely go for it.
Girls are so empowering. It's, girls still have the same strength. We may not be the same as the boys, the men.
Prove them all wrong.
You can be just as successful.